I'm Jenna Hayes, 30 years old, and I never thought my wedding day would turn into a nightmare. Everything was perfect until my brother lost it. In the middle of the reception, he grabbed a glass of red wine and splashed it across my white dress, staining it crimson. Before I could react, he shoved the dessert table, sending cakes and pastries crashing to the floor. Guests gasped, but he wasn't done. He shouted, "This is what you get for acting like you're better." His words hit harder than the wine. I stood there, my dress ruined, my heart racing while my parents rushed to his side. "He's just letting it out," they said, hugging him like he was the victim. My husband stared stunned as whispers spread through the crowd. I wanted to scream to demand answers, but I stayed silent. My brother's outburst wasn't just a tantrum, it was years of resentment exploding. My parents' defense. That was betrayal. I clenched my fists, feeling the weight of every sacrifice I'd made for them. Right then, I decided to do something no one saw coming. I wouldn't let this slide, not after they crossed that line. What happened next changed everything, and they'd soon find out what I was capable of. Have you ever faced family drama that flipped your world upside down? Drop your story in the comments. I'm reading everyone. Growing up in Rochester, New York, my family lived modestly with my parents' small diner. And back then, life was a constant hustle. My father, Stephen Hayes, and my mother, Deborah Hayes, poured everything into that diner, but it barely kept us afloat. The place was a local staple, serving greasy burgers and milkshakes, but profits were thin. Bills piled up, and by the time I was 15, I knew I had to step up. I started waitressing at a nearby cafe after school, juggling orders and rude customers for tips that paid our electricity bill. On weekends, I delivered pizzas, racing through snowy streets to earn an extra $50 a week. Every cent went to the family groceries, rent, whatever kept us going. At that time, I realized my place in the family. My brother Caleb Morgan, 9 years younger and in middle school, was the golden child. Mom and Dad showered him with praise for every little thing: a soccer goal, a decent report card, while my straight A's and debate team wins barely got a nod. By 16, I was working part-time at a coffee shop, saving for college and helping with household bills. Caleb's needs always came first, from new clothes to his high school tuition prep courses costing hundreds of dollars. I didn't mind then, I thought it was my duty. But the imbalance grew clearer as I juggled schoolwork and their expectations while Caleb, barely a teenager, coasted on their affection. I didn't mind helping at first. I loved my family and I wanted us to stay together. But the weight of it grew heavier each year. By 17, I was working 2 jobs, waitressing and tutoring classmates to save for college. I applied for every scholarship I could find, knowing my parents couldn't afford tuition. Caleb, meanwhile, got a new bike for his birthday. No questions asked. I'd overhear Mom telling him, "Don't worry, Jenna's got us covered." It stung, but I swallowed my frustration, thinking it was just how families worked. Looking back, I see how their favoritism shaped Caleb. He never learned to fend for himself. When he was 12, I caught him stealing $20 from my wallet for snacks. Instead of punishing him, Dad laughed it off, saying, "Boys will be boys." I confronted Mom, but she brushed me off, claiming Caleb was just a kid. That was the first time I felt a crack in our family bond. I started noticing how they'd praise Caleb for the smallest things, like passing a math test, while my straight A report cards got a nod at best. I kept working, kept paying for our needs, but the resentment started to build. By the time I graduated high school, I'd earned a full scholarship to a state university. It was my ticket out. But I didn't leave my family behind. I sent money home every month, $200 here, $300 there, to cover Caleb's school supplies or the diner's overdue bills. Caleb was 15 then, old enough to get a part-time job, but my parents never pushed him. "He's not like you," Jenna Dad said once, as if I was born to carry the load. Caleb would smirk, knowing he'd get whatever he wanted without effort. I'd see him with new headphones or a fancy jacket, and I'd wonder why I was the only one sacrificing. That dynamic set the stage for everything that came later. My parents' diner never thrived, but they always found money for Caleb's whims, money that often came from me. I thought I was helping my family survive, but I was enabling Caleb's dependency. His entitlement grew, and so did his bitterness toward me. I didn't realize how deep it ran until years later when it all exploded. My hard work kept us afloat, but it also planted the seeds for Caleb's jealousy, a ticking time bomb I couldn't see coming. After graduating college, I started my job as a software engineer at a major company. With a full scholarship, I'd clawed my way through university studying late nights while working part-time. Landing a role at a tech firm in Rochester was my breakthrough. My salary, $80,000 a year, felt like a fortune compared to my parents' diner, which barely cleared expenses. I was proud, but the money didn't just change my life, it became the lifeline for my family. My brother Caleb Morgan was in college then chasing a vague business degree. I paid his tuition $10,000 a semester, plus his rent $500 monthly, and even bought him a used car for $3,000. Every month, I sent mom and dad extra cash to keep their diner afloat. They never asked Caleb to contribute. "You're doing so well," Jenna mom would say, as if my success was theirs to spend. 2 years into my job, I met my boyfriend Ryan Cole at a tech conference in Buffalo. He was a systems engineer, sharp and kind, with a quick laugh that made me feel seen. Ryan came from a comfortable family. His parents owned a small manufacturing business, and he carried himself with quiet confidence. We bonded over coding challenges and late-night coffee, and soon we were inseparable. I brought him to meet my parents, hoping they'd see what I saw. Instead, Dad barely looked up from his newspaper, muttering, "He's not one of us." Mom forced a smile, but later whispered, "He's too polished, Jenna. Be careful." Their coldness stung, but I brushed it off, thinking they just needed time. Caleb, though, took it to another level. He'd roll his eyes when I mentioned Ryan, mocking my perfect life. "What's it like being Miss Successful?" he'd sneer, lounging in the apartment I paid for. Yet he had no problem asking for more money, $50 for textbooks, $100 for new clothes. I gave in, hoping he'd grow up. But his resentment grew sharper. Once at a family dinner, he scoffed, "You think you're better than us, don't you?" I laughed it off, but his words lingered. Mom and Dad didn't correct him. They just changed the subject, praising Caleb's latest C-grade exam like it was a Nobel Prize. My promotions, my projects. They barely got a nod. When Ryan proposed 3 years later, I was over the moon. He got down on one knee at a quiet park, offering a simple ring that felt like a promise of something real. We planned a modest wedding, wanting to start our life together, right? I told my family, expecting at least some excitement. Mom's response, "Are you sure about him? He's so different." Dad just grunted. "Hope, you're not rushing." Caleb was worse. He texted me, "Getting married to your fancy guy. Good luck keeping up with his world." His sarcasm cut deep, but I ignored it, focusing on Ryan's support. Still, I kept sending money, $600 that month alone for Caleb's car insurance and Mom's new diner equipment. The tension peaked when we announced our engagement at the diner. I'd hoped for a warm moment, maybe a toast. Instead, Mom sighed. "Weddings are expensive, Jenna. Don't expect us to chip in." Dad nodded, adding, "Caleb's got his own expenses." Caleb smirked, saying, "Yeah, don't let your big-shot fiancé make us look bad." I felt my chest tighten. Ryan squeezed my hand, his calm grounding me, but I saw the pattern clearly now. My family didn't just lean on me, they expected me to carry them while tearing me down. Caleb's bitterness wasn't about Ryan. It was about me daring to build a life beyond their reach. That realization hit hard, and it set the stage for the chaos that would unfold. Planning the wedding was a nightmare I never saw coming. Ryan and I wanted a simple ceremony, maybe 200 guests at a local banquet hall in Rochester. We budgeted $20,000, all from our savings, hoping for a day to remember. I thought my family would pitch in, even just a little. Instead, they turned it into a battleground with Caleb leading the charge. He was supposed to be a groomsman, but when I asked him to join Ryan for suit fittings, he blew it off. "Those things are a waste of time," he texted, leaving Ryan to handle it alone. I called him hoping to reason, but he snapped, "I'm not your errand boy, Jenna." His attitude wasn't new, but it cut deeper now, especially since I was still paying $10,000 a semester for his final year at college. Then came the venue. We picked a modest hall with wooden floors and big windows, affordable, but nice. Caleb visited once and scoffed. "This place looks cheap. You're embarrassing us." I explained it was what we could afford, but he rolled his eyes, saying, "Your fancy fiancé should do better." His words stung, especially since I was covering his rent, $600 a month on top of his tuition. Worse, he demanded a designer suit for the wedding costing $3,000, claiming I need to look good in the photos. When I refused, he whined to Mom and Dad. They backed him up, with Mom saying Caleb deserves to feel confident. Dad added, "You're doing fine, Jenna, just cover it." I was floored. They hadn't offered a dime for the wedding but expected me to foot Caleb's bill. It didn't stop there. Caleb insisted I buy him a new car, $15,000 for the wedding so he could arrive in style. I laughed, thinking it was a joke, but he doubled down. "You owe me for always being in your shadow," he said, his voice bitter. I told him no firmly, but Mom called later, pleading, "He's stressed, Jenna. Help him out." I reminded her I was already stretched thin, covering the caterer and flowers. She sighed. Family comes first. Family, it seemed, meant Caleb. Ryan overheard and shook his head, saying, "They're using you." He was right, but I still wired $400 to Mom for the diner's utilities, hoping to keep the peace. The breaking point came during a planning meeting at the diner. I brought sample invitations, excited to share them. Caleb glanced at them and smirked. "These look like they're from a discount store." Mom nodded, adding, "Maybe something classier." I swallowed my frustration, but when Dad suggested I pay for Caleb's car to keep things fair, I lost it. "Fair," I said. "I'm paying for everything: venue, food, my dress." "Where's your help?" Dad shrugged, saying Caleb's got enough on his plate. Caleb just grinned like he'd won. Ryan squeezed my hand, whispering, "You don't have to do this alone." His support kept me grounded, but I felt the weight of their expectations crushing me. That night, lying awake, I replayed every time I'd bailed them out tuition, rent, bills. I'd been their safety net for years, but they treated me like a bank. Caleb's demands weren't just selfish, they were a power play, a way to drag me down. Mom and Dad's blind support for him wasn't love, it was enabling. For the first time, I saw how I'd let this go on too long. I'd given Caleb everything, thinking it was my duty, but it only fed his entitlement. Ryan had been telling me to set boundaries, and now I understood why. I wasn't just planning a wedding, I was planning a life, and I couldn't let my family hold me back. That realization shifted something in me, pushing me to take control before it was too late. The wedding day arrived, the sky was clear, and I thought everything would be perfect. I walked down the aisle in my white lace dress, heart pounding, as 100 guests smiled from their seats. Ryan waited at the altar, his eyes warm and steady, promising a future I'd fought for. The ceremony was flawless, our vows heartfelt. At the reception, we took our first dance, swaying to a soft jazz tune, his hand firm on my waist. For a moment, I forgot the months of family tension, believing we'd pulled it off. Then Caleb, my brother, shattered everything. After a few glasses of red wine, Caleb stumbled toward me, his face twisted with anger. Without warning, he flung his glass, splashing wine across my dress, crimson stains blooming like wounds. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Before I could speak, he shoved the dessert table, sending cakes and pastries crashing to the floor. "This is what you get for acting like you're better," he shouted, his voice slurring but venomous. Guests froze, forks clattering. Ryan stepped in front of me, his jaw tight, but Caleb kept going, pointing at me. "You think you're above us, don't you?" My dress was ruined. My heart racing, but what came next was worse. Mom and Dad rushed to Caleb, not me. He's just letting it out, Mom said, patting his shoulder. Dad nodded, adding, He's had a rough time, Jenna. Rough time. I was stunned. Ryan whispered, They're defending him. The betrayal cut deeper than the wine stains. I scanned the room. Friends, colleagues, Ryan's parents, all staring, some whispering. My best friend Kelsey mouthed, Are you okay? I wasn't. Years of carrying my family, and this was how they repaid me. Then I overheard Mom whispering to Dad, We needed the money to put toward Caleb's car. My blood ran cold. I'd saved $10,000 for our honeymoon, a trip to the Bahamas we'd planned for months. I checked my account the week before, cleaned out. I'd assumed a bank error, but now it clicked. You took my honeymoon money? I asked, voice shaking loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Mom's face paled. Dad stammered. Caleb needed a reliable car, Jenna. You've got plenty. Plenty. I'd paid for the entire wedding, $30,000 from my own pocket. Caleb smirked, not even denying it. I couldn't hold back. You stole $10,000 from me, I said, turning to face the room. My parents took my honeymoon savings to help pay for Caleb's car. Guests gasped, some murmuring in shock. Ryan's mother Linda looked horrified. His father Richard shook his head. Mom tried to hush me, saying, Don't make a scene. But I was done hiding their selfishness. A scene, I snapped. Caleb ruined my dress, trashed our reception, and you're protecting him. Dad muttered. Family sticks together. I laughed bitterly. Family. You've been using me for years. Ryan took my hand, his voice steady. We're done here, Jenna. He led me away from the chaos, past the spilled desserts and staring guests. My dress was a mess, my heart broken, but my anger burned brighter. They'd crossed a line, stealing from me, defending Caleb's outburst, acting like I owed them. As we reached the exit, I looked back at Caleb, still grinning, and my parents whispering excuses. I knew then I couldn't keep carrying them. Their betrayal wasn't just a moment, it was a wake-up call, and I was ready to answer it. The morning after, I sat at my laptop, ready to end all support. The sting of Caleb's outburst and my parents' betrayal burned fresh. Ryan sat beside me, his presence steady as I logged into my bank account. For years, I'd sent money, $10,000 per semester for Caleb's final year at college, $600 monthly for his rent, $3,000 for his car. No more. I canceled the recurring transfers, my hands shaking but resolute. Next, I called the travel agency to cancel our Bahamas honeymoon, a $10,000 trip we could no longer afford after my parents' theft. We'll stay home, I told Ryan, my voice steady. He nodded, saying, Whatever you need, Jenna. His support gave me strength, but I braced for the fallout. Caleb's reaction came fast. By noon, my phone buzzed with his texts. You cut me off real nice. Jenna, one read. Another, You're a selfish jerk hoarding your money. Then came a voicemail, his voice dripping with venom. You think you can ditch me after all I've been through? I didn't respond. His words hurt, but they also clarified things. He'd never seen me as a sister, just a wallet, especially now that he couldn't finish his senior year without my help. I deleted his messages, each one fueling my resolve. Ryan watched, his jaw tight. He's lashing out because he's scared, he said. I nodded, but fear didn't excuse his entitlement. That evening, Mom called. How could you do this to Caleb? She demanded, her tone sharp. He's struggling without your help. I reminded her of the wedding, his tantrum, the stolen $10,000. She brushed it off. You're abandoning your family, she said. We raised you better. Raised me. I'd been raising them since I was 15, covering bills while Caleb got new sneakers. Dad's call came next, his voice gruff. You're punishing Caleb for one mistake, he said. Fix this, Jenna. One mistake? I laughed, bitter. I've paid for his life for years, I replied. I'm done. He hung up, leaving me staring at my phone, their words echoing like a slap. The next day, Caleb escalated. He left another voicemail yelling, You owe me, Jenna, I'll make you regret this. I saved it just in case. Ryan urged me to block him, but I wasn't ready. Part of me still hoped he'd see reason. Instead, he texted again. "You're nothing without us." I showed Ryan, who shook his head. "He's wrong," he said, pulling me close. "You're everything." His words anchored me, but the guilt gnawed. Had I been too harsh, I pushed the thought away. Caleb's car, his rent, his tuition. They weren't my responsibility anymore. Mom and Dad didn't let up. At a tense diner meeting a week later, Mom pleaded, "Caleb can't pay rent now. Help him just this once." I shook my head. "I've given enough," I said. Dad scowled, saying family doesn't turn their back. I wanted to scream. Family. They'd defended Caleb while he ruined my wedding, taken my savings for his car. "You chose him over me." I said, my voice steady but cold. "I'm choosing myself now." Mom's eyes welled up, but she didn't argue. Dad just looked away, muttering about loyalty. Canceling the honeymoon hurt, but it was necessary. Ryan and I spent evenings planning our future instead, saving for a house, not a trip. My best friend Kelsey called to check in, horrified by my family's reaction. "You're doing the right thing," she said. I wasn't so sure. Late at night, I'd lie awake replaying their accusations. Selfish. Abandoning. But then I'd remember Caleb's smirk. Mom's excuses. Dad's demands. I'd enabled them too long, thinking it was love. Now I saw it for what it was. Manipulation. Cutting them off wasn't just about money, it was about reclaiming my life. I knew they'd fight back, and I was ready to face whatever came next. Months after the confrontation, life settled into a new rhythm. My family's ambush at my office lingered in my mind, but I stood firm. Caleb had stormed in, face flushed, yelling, "You're betraying your family." "Jenna," Mom followed, her voice piercing, "you owe Caleb his college tuition." Dad's words cut deep. "You can't just abandon us." My colleagues froze, their eyes darting between us. Memories of their betrayal, stolen honeymoon funds. Caleb's wedding outburst surged back. I gripped my desk, heart racing, knowing this was no discussion but a calculated attack. Steeling myself, I faced them. "I'm done," I said, eyes shifting from Caleb to Mom to Dad. "No more money, no more contact." Caleb's jaw dropped before he shouted, "You'll regret this, traitor." Mom's tears came fast, her voice pleading, "Think about your brother." Dad's glare burned, his mutter sharp. "Ungrateful." My co-workers watched, some stunned, others avoiding my gaze. Ryan's hand grazed my arm, his whisper steady. "You're doing the right thing." His support grounded me. I turned back to my family. "Leave, or security will show you out." They hesitated, then left, Caleb's curses fading down the hall. The office grew quiet, the weight of my decision heavy. I blocked their numbers, erased their emails. Ryan and I planned a simple honeymoon, a $3,000 escape to the Adirondacks. We wandered trails, shared laughs by a crackling campfire, and felt unburdened. At work, my focus sharpened, earning me a promotion to senior engineer with a $20,000 salary boost. I accepted, pride swelling within me. Ryan's parents, Richard and Linda, opened their home for Sunday dinners, their kindness a balm. Linda's hug was warm. "Your family now." Richard's nod was firm. "You deserve better." Caleb struggled without my support. A friend mentioned he was evicted, unable to pay rent, and moved back to Mom and Dad's cramped apartment. His college expelled him when his final year tuition went unpaid, leaving him stocking shelves at a hardware store for $8 an hour. Guilt flickered briefly, but his past cruelty doused it. Mom and Dad's calls stopped, their silence deafening. They'd leaned on me too long now, facing the fallout. Reflecting, I realized family doesn't justify manipulation. I once believed love meant sacrificing everything: money, time, joy. But true love demands boundaries, guards your peace. Cutting them off was painful, severing ties with those I'd known my whole life. Yet it freed me to build a life with Ryan, find family in Richard and Linda, and pursue my dreams. If you're carrying others' burdens, remember your joy isn't owed to anyone. Set boundaries, stand firm, choose yourself. That's the truth. My family taught me, a lesson I'll hold forever. Thank you for listening to my story. Please share your thoughts below and consider subscribing to this channel for more stories of